Right. Morning, Lisa. Welcome.
Morning.
How are you?
Morning, Kim. Very well, Kim, and excited about the first International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day and what we've got planned.
I know, me too. It's going to be really exciting, and hopefully Nat will join us in a moment. So for everybody who can see us streaming live to Nat's LinkedIn, he's being fashionably late, so will join us shortly, I'm sure. But what we wanted to be really able to do right now was explain a little bit more about the day, what we've got planned, and how you can get involved. So I think, Lisa, you're starting off, aren't you? So do you want to run through what you're doing this morning?
I am. So at 10 o'clock, we have a panel discussion called Taming the Imposter Within. And that's going to be hosted by myself with Mark Giles from Hereford IT, Professor Lisa Short from P&L Digital, Paloma Garcia from ServiceNow, and Christina Magro, who's a cybersecurity life coach. Followed by a webinar that I'll be running called Flipping the Script on Imposter Syndrome, and that's at 11 o'clock. And then, Kim, if you had to talk a little bit about the drop-in session that we've got at lunchtime, because this is the opportunity for everyone to really get involved.
Absolutely. So we're doing a drop-in at 12. And we've got a couple of guests joining us. So we've got the fabulous Stephen Dickens, and we've also got Cindy Core, who were joining us live in the studio. But you can also get involved by commenting and sharing your thoughts. We want as many people to get involved as possible, because the more we can raise awareness, the more we can help. Research shows that actually talking about imposter syndrome is one of the first steps to overcoming it. So we really do want to just raise awareness and get people talking about it more. And then this afternoon, we've got another panel discussion where myself and Nat are going to be joined by Donna Sarkar and Melissa Sassy, again, talking about imposter syndrome, our journeys, and the hints and tips that we've learned to be able to overcome it. And then, Lisa, I think we're back over to you, aren't we?
We are. So I have a fireside chat Q&A with Vicky Lawrence. And we're going to be talking about leading others who have imposter syndrome. So a bit of a slightly different slant. And then at 6, and that's at 4 o'clock BST. And then at 6:30 p.m. BST, I'm rerunning my webinar, Flipping the Script on Imposter Syndrome. So that'll reach a bit more of an international audience and be able to be seen by people in the USA with their different time zones to us.
Fantastic. So the day is all about people getting involved, really. So we really would love to hear people's stories. If you'd like to share what's going on in your world, or how you've found anything to do with imposter syndrome, whether it's suffering it yourself or whether or not it's leading people who have suffered it or are suffering it, then please do share. And we've got the hashtag IISAD 2021, and we'll be able to follow that and then share it to all the subscribers. Also, you can get in touch with us at overcomingimposter.com. But we really just want people to be able to find that safe space to be able to talk about what it is to feel like when you are suffering from that imposter syndrome. And we were chatting about this yesterday, weren't we, Lisa? That it's almost like it's almost like a confidence spectrum. So when you're in the throes of that imposter syndrome, you're right over here. If we pulled it all the way back to overconfident, you're probably talking the Dunning-Kruger effect. But we fall somewhere between that spectrum every day. It doesn't mean to say that if we're suffering from imposter syndrome that we always feel like an imposter every moment of every day. But at the point that that imposter is taking over, it can feel debilitating. You can almost struggle to work out what to say next, because that voice in your head feels so loud, doesn't it, that you worry that that's the one that's coming out, that's the one that's talking to everybody, and that you're going to say something really, really stupid or let yourself down. But there's been some fascinating articles, and one we were debating this morning, wasn't it, about how you can use that imposter to your advantage once you understand it. So, you know, I think my imposter probably drove my lifelong love of learning, because I was so desperate to learn new things so that I wouldn't get found out at being not very good at what I did, that it probably spurred me on. And you were saying you've had similar.
Absolutely, and it's been debilitating for me for a number of years. I think if I had to pick a point when it really started, though, Kim, for me, it was actually when I made the transition into the cybersecurity industry. prior to that, I'd spent a long time working in the entertainment industry, so it was a very different arena. And I worked for many years with Chris Tarrant, the host of the UK's Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, before Jeremy Clarkson took over. But it wasn't until I made that transition into cybersecurity, which was obviously a lot more of a technical arena. I didn't obviously have that technical background, but like yourself, I had a huge appetite to learn and really wanted to immerse myself in the cybersecurity industry. And I was always fascinated with the mind of the hacker and why they're driven to do that and do the things that they do, and the whole sort of social engineering and the human side of hacking. And actually, leading on from that, I'm considering possibly doing a more of a psychology type course, moving on, because I really want to get into that more. So I'm exactly the same with that lifelong learning. But since I've been in the cybersecurity industry, it's been like 2009, those voices in my head of you're a fraud, I'm going to get found out any second, and I'm rubbish at what I do, and I'm going to be seen for the fraud that I am any second. I've actually turned opportunities down in the past because of that, and just pulled away and gone straight into myself, Kim. So when obviously we started talking at the beginning of this year about the possibility of a book on the subject, which led me to researching it more, and then we obviously talked about the launching this day, which here we are. Absolutely fascinating arena for me.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating, and that so resonates. I mean, as you know, I spent many years in financial services or IT, despite the fact that my background is a hairdresser. So I was convinced people were going to go, oh my God, we put the hairdresser on the board, quick, get her off. Obviously it didn't happen, but that constant fear, that constant voice in your head going, when they find out that you shouldn't be here, that you aren't qualified, that you don't have what it takes. And I get it, there has been plenty of opportunities that I've turned down because I just wasn't certain. And even though I've spent the last 4.5 years really researching imposter syndrome and the psychology and how our brains work and why we do this to ourselves, it doesn't stop the fact that every now and again that inner imposter takes over. This morning was a great example of that. Yeah. It's like, who are you to think that you dare launch International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day? It's like my inner imposter was saying, just stop it. That's why you can't do it. but actually you kind of look at it and go, but there isn't one. And we know that talking about it is what helps.
Yeah.
People that space to say, one, it's a something, and two, that there is a way past it, that there is a way to reframe your thinking and regain control when that inner critic is taking over. Because one of the things that I learned is being able to share your vulnerability without losing your credibility really helps, because we're all vulnerable about something, aren't we? We all have a something that we hope nobody finds out, that we hope nobody identifies. So, mine for a lot of years was that I was a hairdresser, but actually now I realise that's my strength, not my weakness, because it taught me to listen, to be interested in people. And I think as long as you are passionately curious, you can pretty much get away with a lot, can't you? Because you just seek to constantly understand.
Absolutely. And I'll be talking about this a bit more in the webinar I'll be doing, but I was holding back so much with my idea of launching a trade association in cybersecurity. So I'm the CEO and founder of the UK Cybersecurity Association, and that as idea in terms of the genesis of the idea is a couple of years or more in the making. And every time I got close to it, it's like, you can't launch this. Who are you to think you can, create this trade association? You're nothing, you're nobody. All those thoughts were there. And it was actually through a series of coaching sessions with Christina, who's on my panel discussion that I had at the beginning part of last year. She helped me to really sort of say, actually, you are the perfect person. You're connected. You know so many people in the industry. You know a lot of different organizations. You've done a lot of great work already in the cybersecurity arena. You've got great project management skills. You are the perfect person to launch this. And that really helped me flip it on its head. And that's the theme of my webinar, of flipping the script on imposter syndrome. So turning things around to try and manage those thoughts.
Yeah, no, and it's so true, isn't it? that ability, once you understand it, to be able to kind of flip that switch, to change that thinking, to have a look at the fact that we live in a world of polarity. For every up, there's a down. For every left, there's a right. So, you know, unless we can, if we believe that one thing is true, then the counter opposite is also true. And look, we're about to be joined by the lovely Nat. Hey, lovely.
I'm sorry I'm late.
Good morning.
It's terrible. I literally, because I didn't have it in my diary, right? I was just like, you caught me. I'm in the middle of my coffee and it's an hour later here, right, where I am. So I'm even worse. It looks even worse.
I thought you were just getting me back for Friday when I turned up a minute before we went live. But I mean, you've pushed it, love. You're even outside of your 5-minute window. We should just get you out.
Yeah, for anyone that doesn't know, I do have a 5-minute window, and if I schedule a call with someone and they are 5 minutes late, I will cancel. And I've done it to Stephen Gillen, bless him, and a number of other people. Stephen Gillen was the first person that I had to do it to, and he was Britain's most dangerous criminal. The guy used to carry a shotgun around with him all the time, seriously. And he was in jail for like 10 years. And he's actually a coach, and very interesting. But we had a really funny conversation when he called me up. He called me up 10 minutes later after I cancelled. And he said, come on then, let's do it now. I said, no, Steve, we can't do it now. You can't have one rule for one person and one rule for someone else.
And to be fair, ever since you've told me that, I daren't be late.
You're not normally late, Kim.
Hey?
You're not normally late.
I'm not. And I wasn't. I was there with about 30 seconds to spare.
Well, I'm glad that I wasn't in that moment of craziness. Yeah.
Good. We just had a bit of an inner imposter issue about, do we go live? Do we not go live? We're about to go live to Nat's LinkedIn, and Nat's not with us.
Oh, well, don't worry. It's okay.
Anyway.
It's okay. I've left my heater on, so that's making noise. So there we are. Hey, you got to improvise. Yeah.
So we've been sharing why we're getting involved in today. Do you want to share why you are, please?
It's quite serious, really. Well, to be honest, it's not. I don't think I suffer actually from imposter syndrome, as you might call it. But I think certainly I've noticed kind of how self-confidence has affected my life and my career over the last, however many years. I mean, since I was 14, I worked in my dad. He had a winery and he went to MIT, and he always used to shout at me and say, you got to get into the best schools and all this kind of stuff. So that sort of pressure to excel academically was always there. And I think actually that is a really bad thing for a lot of people when they get pressured into this kind of environment. So anyhow, that really affected me over the years, and I didn't quite realize that. But then there were certain things that I was really good at and certain things that I wasn't good at. And then obviously, Kim and I have been talking about this confidence spectrum that we've kind of coined the term we're going to use for our books. We'll probably put a bit of that into our books and blogs and stuff. And, along that confidence spectrum, you've kind of got this safe place in the middle, which is kind of like, okay, I'm good at that, and I'm competent, and I'm fairly confident that I'm quite good at it. But then on the outskirts, you've got the imposter, and then you've obviously got the kind of overconfidence of the ego, right? And the ego basically, and the way that all of these kind of behaviors affect your outputs is very, very interesting. And we've been doing a lot of tweeting the past few days with some quite influential people within the schools and this sort of stuff. And also, top journalists who've kind of reached out via direct message and said, well, so-and-so had this. He told me about this at some point when he was actually reading the news. One of these people told me all about that. And I think if we can start off with our children and actually help them to understand or not even think about worrying about their confidence levels and continue that throughout their lives, we're going to have a whole new generation of capable people. That's kind of how I'm looking at it, really.
I agree, because I think it's amazing, isn't it, what we do to ourselves when we're so young. So we come up with these I am statements, and I think they are created by the age of 7. They are enforced by the age of 14, and they're pretty much embedded by the age of 21. And we don't always know them. We're not always consciously aware of them, and yet they drive our choices. They drive how we show up in the world. And once we understand them, then we can change them, because they might not be serving us anymore. They might not be the things that we want to be thinking about our lives. And yet, until we know about them, they will inadvertently drive what we're doing, because we will expect things to go a certain way. So one of mine was, I'm not enough. So every time anything went wrong, that was great, because it's like, I knew I wasn't enough. So that was just great evidence to prove that I was right, that I wasn't enough. But actually now you realize that was because I was trying so desperately to be perfect. And as human beings, we are perfectly imperfect. We're not supposed to be perfect. We're supposed to learn and grow, but we don't tell anybody that, do we? It's like the worst secret in the world. We don't tell you that you're supposed to actually be perfectly imperfect, and it's okay to get things wrong. It's the fact that it's not the mistake that defines you. It's what you do with it. It's how you learn from it, and how you grow through that mistake. And as long as you acknowledge it, you apologize for it, and you take the lesson, then actually that's how we develop, isn't it? It's how we've ended up inventing the things we've invented, not because they turned up the first day anybody thought about them, but because the people that invented them were willing to keep going, to keep trying, to learn from those mistakes. And yet we've now created a society where we live in a compare and despair society, don't we? We look at the seemingly perfect view of everybody else's life, and we look at the messy reality of our own, and we find ourselves lacking. Because, funnily enough, I always joke about this. I never post the no makeup selfie when I've been up all night with Scarlett, because the world doesn't need to see that. That would just be unkind. Or the fact that I burnt dinner because I wasn't paying attention. But those things happen. But what we post is the best version of ourselves. But we live with our reality. And I think the more we can talk about that, the more we can talk about the fact that actually lots of people have this. People that you wouldn't expect to suffer from imposter syndrome have suffered from it. A lot of the big celebrities like Maya Angelou, Oprah Winfrey, even Einstein had it. And when you look at that, somebody who was globally recognized as being a genius doubted his ability, doubted his inner imposter. You start to think, well, actually, maybe that's okay then. Or actually, I'm not sure if this resonates with you guys. It's when my inner imposter gets even worse. I mean, we were interviewing the other day, weren't we? The fabulous Michael Tobin, OBE, and he was telling us about his imposter, and my inner imposter kicked in and went, well, you can't have imposter syndrome. I mean, look what he's achieved. Now that's an imposter. Like, you're not giving us to be an imposter to this imposter. I was like, how ridiculous is this conversation, Kim? How stupid. If you actually said this out loud, people would go, I think we might need a straitjacket. But that's how ridiculous it is we start to doubt ourselves on every level. And I think once we talk about that and realize that actually you're not alone in having those silly conversations in your head, other people resonate with them too, it's the first step of being able to overcome it, isn't it?
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, for me, Kim, what you were touching on there, and I talk about this a bit in my webinar, is you can probably see behind me the picture. I'm a massive fan of Queen and Freddie Mercury, and finding out that Freddie was so badly affected by imposter syndrome. This is the guy that had, billions of people in the palm of his hand at that Live Aid performance. And he would be so, nervous, and his inner imposter would be there. He'd be physically sick before every live performance he did. And he'd come off the stage and say to the other band members, do you think they like me, darlings? Was I okay? And it's like, but you had all these people in the palm of your hand, every live performance you did. And that really, if Freddie could, Freddie Mercury of all people could, suffer from imposter syndrome, goodness.
It's fascinating, isn't it? So you look at people and that you can see their genius, but they can't see it for themselves. And I think that's kind of one of the big lessons that I learned, is that you can borrow somebody's belief. So at the point that you are really suffering, you can look at it and go, every opportunity that you've been given because that person believes you can do it, because people don't set you up to fail. people don't go out and go, I wonder how to trip you up, to make you look really stupid. So if you assume positive intent, when somebody gives you an opportunity, it's because they believe in you. And I suddenly realized, like probably about 10, 12 years ago, that I was just going to borrow other people's belief because I couldn't trust my own. I couldn't trust my opinion of anything. And just borrowing that belief really helped. And it then taught me something new, which is much better for me as a leader, which is you can lend people your belief. So actually, at the moment that you see people in your team that are suffering, that they're struggling, you can go out and overtly give them your belief, let them know why you believe they can do it, what it is that they've done before. But be really specific, because we are really bad at feedback, particularly in Britain. If we say somebody's done something well, we'll go, good job. Well, what was good? Specifically, what did I do that you want me to do again? But we get really proud of ourselves. I'm good at feedback. I just said, great job. But when somebody did something that we don't want, we give them war and peace. This is what you did. This is where it was. This is what happened. This is what it looked like. No wonder we hate feedback, because feedback basically means you're going to tell me off. So we don't really want to go and listen from it. And the other thing is, whenever you give somebody feedback, the first thing that they do is they defend their intention, because they didn't intend to get it wrong. So you end up in a ridiculous conversation where they start talking to you about what they were trying to do rather than what they actually did. And I think, we need to change that culture. We need to get it to a place, hi Hobji, where you can actually share with people that what they did well specifically and why you want them to do it again, but also share with them that when they got things wrong, it's not because you think their intention was to get it wrong, but just that's how we learn, isn't it? And I think if we can use days like today to just create the dialogue, to enable us to have more conversations, to create that safe space, then hopefully we can go some of the way towards helping people overcome it when they're in the grips of it. Yeah,
very much so. I mean, I think, you guys have said a lot there. And today we've got all sorts of events kind of happening. We've got people from Microsoft, people from IBM, people from all sorts of different security firms, internet security firms, lots and lots of people who've kind of either they've had to deal with this themselves, or they've kind of helped their co-workers to kind of get through it. And I think it's about time that we kind of help people to step up and really achieve the lives that they want, create the lives that they want, really. And this is a fundamental part of that, because if you don't believe in yourself, how are you going to build the life that you want? Like it's very, very hard as it is. And sometimes we need to work with coaches, right? And like, that's it really. So we've got a sort of agenda somewhere, haven't we, that people can, so they can see what we're doing and drop in. And I think we've even got a live session where people can actually drop in, like people like Sarjeet. I think he's over in Silicon Valley. But like, the difference between the Americans and the English is the Americans will quite happily stand up and say, look, we're really amazing at this, right? And this is a massive cultural difference that we sort of seem to forget in England, in the UK in general. And we're much more European. We don't really sort of talk about how amazing we are. And I think it's good. That's why maybe we need friends to talk about how great we are, not talking about having like a rah-rah party or anything like that. It's a bit much. Yeah.
No, but you're right. We did share a little bit of the agenda, but if people want to get the agenda, if you go over to overcomingimposter.com, then you can download a copy of the agenda and also a copy of the 7-step guide, so that when you're in the throes of imposter syndrome, the guide hopefully will help you to reframe that thinking and quieten that inner critic. But we really would like to get as many people involved as possible. So there is a drop-in, as you said, Nat, at 12 o'clock. So please do join us, but also share your stories and your thoughts all day. If you can use the hashtag IISAD2021, then we can obviously be following that and share. Bless you. Thank you. Sorry, I can't read and talk at the same time. Clearly, I shouldn't do hosting, should I? But you're right. It is helping to try and keep the best minds from sharing their best work. Thank you for getting involved, Sarjeet. Really appreciate it. So I think we're almost, I guess, out, aren't we? Because we're getting ready to go into the next bit. So what we'd say is, please do get involved, share your stories, share your thoughts. If you've got any works that you're already doing on this, one of the beauties of the last few days has been the amount of people that we've been able to connect with that we hadn't connected with before, that are also talking about this subject. So we would love more people to get involved and share it in your networks. You never know who might be out there that's suffering, that hopefully being able to talk about it might help. Lisa, anything else from you, my love?
First session will be at 10 o'clock, which is the panel discussion on taming your inner imposter. And as you said, Kim, please get involved. Please share your stories, your thoughts, your anecdotes, feedback, anything about the day. Yeah, really looking forward to this and the full day of events that we've got. So
very much so, very much so. Well, thanks. It's great everyone tuned in, and I finally made it. You know, I was a bit late, but I won't be late later. But thank you, Juan, for dropping by my LinkedIn, and yeah, have a great day, everyone. And we hope to see you drop in later on to some of the talks and get involved on Twitter mainly. Conversations that are on Twitter, really. Yeah. We love doing a bit of Twitter.
Oh, fab.
Sarji's got a book. Show your works, he says. Well, thanks, Sarji, and yeah, hope to see you in the Twitter sphere, and maybe drop in and share your opinion with us. Thanks, guys.
Great.
See you all later. Have a lovely day.
See you later. Bye.
Bye bye.